So today, the nation's top spy held a rare press conference to defend his agencies following the Democrats' release of a report on the CIA's enhanced interrogation methods.
In many respects, the program was uncharted territory for the CIA, and we were not prepared. We had little experience housing detainees, and precious few of our officers were trained interrogators. But the President authorized the effort 6 days after 9/11, and it was our job to carry it out. And whatever your views are on EITs, our nation, and in particular this agency, did a lot of things right during this difficult time to keep this country strong and secure.
But was the program worth it? Here's more from John Brennan.
Detainees who were subjected to EITs at some point during their confinement subsequently provided information that our experts found to be useful and valuable in our counterterrorism efforts.
Do you think the bin Laden case can be attributed in some part to enhanced interrogation techniques or torture?
It is our considered view that the detainees who were subjected to enhanced interrogation techniques provided information that was useful and was used in the ultimate operation to go against bin Laden.
So throughout the 45-minute news conference, Brennan never used the word torture once. He said officers involved in the program, quote, did what they were asked to do in the service of our nation. So, Bob, yesterday you suggested former CIA directors, George Tenet, Porter Goss, and Michael Hayden lied. Now, do you want to add a fourth? In front of Obama's, by the way, to that charge?
I don't think I used the word lie. But
no, you did.
I said, okay, fine. If I used the word lie, it was incredibly misleading. First of all, George Bush signed this order, and if you read the order, nothing in that said advanced techniques, number one. He didn't find out about it in 2006. The CIA, by its own admission, kept this information away from Secretary of State Colin Powell, because they were worried that he would react negatively to it. The CIA's own cable said that they thought they were bordering on breaking the law, and Rodriguez, who was the person we highlighted here yesterday as a stellar example of somebody, he sent a cable back saying, we shouldn't be talking about the law, and then,
but the question was, and yesterday we brought this up, there were 3 former CIA directors who said that the enhanced interrogation techniques helped us, kept us safer, and led us to bin Laden.
No,
you said that was wrong.
Now
Brennan said the exact same thing.
He did not say. He said in part.
Well, what part do you wish they didn't have? I mean, how can you get to a whole if you don't have a part?
There's the idea that somehow this was the only way to get to bin Laden, which is the spin that a lot of people are giving here. It's just not true.
I just love it. I mean, how ungrateful, you know? And then you call people who have served this country fearlessly liars. That's what you're saying. It's really disgusting. And no, it wasn't called torture. It's enhanced interrogation techniques that were approved by the Justice Department that were legal at the time that these officers carried it out. So what problem do you have with information that led to the death of Osama bin Laden, part or whole?
The same arguments you give about how the current administration and the Justice Department do not prosecute because these are part of the Obama administration, Holder won't do it, is the same thing. This was the Bush Justice Department. They're not going to prosecute these guys.
Great. Any question that the EITs that they used helped? I think there are conflicting opinions on that. I kind of believe that they did, and I actually do. And by the way, when you compare waterboarding to beheading, I still think we take the high road. I may be crazy, but I think we're better than they are, even when we do a little bit of waterboarding.
Of course.
We don't cut off their damn heads. How does a report? By the way, this report cost $50 million. What were they spending it on? Carafes of coffee, plates of pastries? I could have done this report for 50 grand and a case of beer. It makes no sense to me. That's the waste.
And guess what else? They didn't even interview the people that were engaged in doing that.
I know. They had all their cables.
Yeah, but you know what? Well, okay, let's say Alan West wrote a 500-page slam on you, Bob, and never called you. What would you call him?
I would think it would be unfair to do it. I agree with that.
Okay.
And I agree they should have asked these people questions, but they have 6,000 pages of information here.
You know, but the other problem, too, by defending the CIA, there are people in the media that conflate that with championing torture. Whenever we say that we're defending the CIA for what they did. No, we simply understand the context of the time and their role in that context in an unknown present and future in which aberrations occur. So I like to use the liberal term, it was for the greater good. We waterboarded for the greater good, because they've used that line with Mao and with Stalin in some of the dumbest programs in the world. So we waterboarded for the greater good. That's a liberal thing.
Just like we do predator drones, right, Bob? So if you were asked a guy, hey, do you want to get hit your whole family, your wife, your children, your grandma, everybody by a predator drone, or would you like to have a little waterboarding?
I'd like to have a specific example where grandma and kids were killed.
Can I get Dana in here? Dana, take us through Brennan. Brennan was there during those days, and now President Obama has appointed him CIA director. So he's been on both sides of it. He's been there when the Bush administration was there. He's also been there when Obama's been there.
Yeah, and he has dedicated his career to government. I mean, I think we have to look at this and just say this is somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, extremely experienced, and somebody who is trying to hold together an agency that's responsible for keeping all of us safe in the midst of a Washington, D.C. that thinks that they're a bunch of liars and that they have stained America. I think that he is facing a morale problem and a crisis of confidence amongst his the agents and the analysts and the people at the CIA are thinking, oh my gosh, is anybody going to stand up for us? That's what he did today, and I think he did a fairly good job of it. On the Senate Democrats report, this is not a Senate report by any stretch.
No.
Okay, this is the Senate Democrats. The way that suggesting that it's okay that they just read cables and they didn't talk to anybody who was actually involved in the program is the equivalent of doing a drone strike versus human intelligence, which is really what we're talking about here. The question of what are you willing to give up? I'm for the all-of-the-above strategy. And I don't want to take anything off the table, and I hope that we are going to, as a country, reject the suggestion today by the United Nations that the United Nations now wants to do an investigation.
Right.
Perhaps, you know, they would even talk to the CIA directors when our Senate Democrats wouldn't.
Let's move on to this. One of the many outraged by the CIA coming under fire is Dick Cheney, who was very fired up last night on Special Report.
I think it's a terrible piece of work, basically. It seems to me it's deeply flawed. They didn't bother to interview key people involved in the program. What happened here was that we asked the agency to go take steps and put in place programs that were designed to catch the bastards who killed 3,000 of us on 9/11 and to make sure it didn't happen again. And that's exactly what they did, and they deserve a lot of credit, not the kind of condemnation that they're receiving from the Senate Democrats.
And Cheney went further.
We've got Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who's the mastermind of 9/11, who has killed 3,000 Americans, taken down the World Trade Center, hit the Pentagon, would have taken out the White House or the Capitol building if, in fact, they hadn't been for the passengers on United 93. He is in our possession. We know he's the architect. And what are we supposed to do? Kiss him on both cheeks and say, please, please, tell us what you know? Of course not.
This report says it was not successful.
The report's full of crap.
I wonder if you read the report.
Well, he said he did.
Did you read Obamacare?
No, I didn't.
So go ahead, Greg. I mean, he's fired up, and frankly, it's kind of refreshing to see someone say, I'm not backing away from the report.
You know, there's a lot of people, millions of people, who hate Dick Cheney because he's a mean son of a bee. Dana. But who would you rather have in your corner when fighting terror? A mean son of a bee, or say the New York Times editorial board who hates him? But the fact is, the New York Times editorial board only can exist if somebody like Dick Cheney exists. It's his ruthlessness that guarantees the lives of pacifists. You can't have peaceniks without warnicks.
Yeah, well, he's a realist. That's the thing. He's somebody who is unabashed in his support and love for this country, that is willing and ready to do what it takes. And again, within the law. Does everyone understand that? You're trying to punish somebody for a crime that was never even considered a crime because now you have some moral disfavor with it. So really look yourself in the face and say, am I a hypocrite? Because I had no problem with it then, like people on that Intelligence Committee, but now they have a problem with it.
Does that make Colin Powell a hypocrite who believes that Cheney got him up in front of the UN on false information to get into the war in Iraq, who would not give him this information because they would have thought that he would have said, this is no, it's a bad idea? The President of the United States didn't get a brief on this until 2000.
Bob, you're taking that from the Senate Democrats' report, from the cable.
No, I know the Powell thing is way before that.
No, forget. I'm not talking about Colin Powell.
I'm not talking about Powell.
You have said several times that the President and the Vice President were not told, that they were kept in the dark by the CIA. That comes from the Senate Democrats report, in which they did not talk to any of the directors to ask them Did you keep something from President Bush?
In Bush's own book, he says that.
No, that's not what he says. He says that in fact, we just have him on tape the other day saying that he believes that he had the information that he needed.
And so does Dick Cheney, so they don't seem to be.
So I don't understand why you keep repeating that.
You keep saying we hate Dick Cheney, but the fact of the matter is I just don't believe him.
So you're all looking back saying Bush, you know, there was at one point there was a congressional letter that was sent by 58 Democrat congresspeople saying we should look into whether or not George Bush was criminal in what he did with interrogations. Can you imagine 10 years down the road or 15 years down the road, a Republican Senate and Congress saying, hey, remember Obama back in 2014? He was droning people without even summarily droning people, killing some collateral damage women and children. Maybe he should be a war criminal.
I think it's a ridiculous suggestion to prosecute to go after Bush. I agree with you on that.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Intelligence Committee Chair Dianne Feinstein admitted on national television this week that she and her fellow Democrats had political motives to release the report. Listen to some of her critics share their thoughts on the senator's role in all of this.
I'm just surprised Feinstein didn't release it last week so she could have been Times Person of the Year. Denigrating America right now seems to be very au courant.
With Feinstein, she may not have a reputation of being a partisan, but after now, she will have a reputation of bearing a grudge.
What I personally believe is that there's some sort of a beef with the CIA and Senator Feinstein, and this is just her effort on the way out as the chairman to smear the men and women.
All right, Greg, you want to take this?
Well, okay. Why is the bar so low when it comes to facts these days? In whether it's immigration, whether it's law enforcement, national security, it's because of politics. Politics was the wolf that we would bar at the door when dealing with national security because we're all Americans. But Bob, not you, but the left has succeeded in making all things political, including the personal, including safety. So now whenever we discuss these things, what used to be what's best for America is now what's best for my political beliefs. And that's why facts in terms of cases about, like the Rolling Stone story, don't matter as much. When you talk about facts about gun control, it doesn't really matter. When you talk about shootings across the country, it doesn't really matter. It's about feeling and ideology. It's not about reality.
Well, also the fact is that Dianne Feinstein here is subjected to 3 people who are beating up on her. We did not use one person who said something favorable about it, which there were a lot. But, of course, we edited those all out. The fact of the matter is Dianne Feinstein has had a long and very strong history with the intelligence community. They liked her a lot. And I think her feeling about the politicalization is I think she's right. If it got past January 1, the Republicans would not have allowed her to take the floor and do this kind of thing.
But if it got past January 1, maybe they would have insisted that the 4 CIA directors actually be
or any of the officers
included in the report.
Well, but
I mean, maybe I mean, I just think it's better government to have done it that way. What she did was so partisan, so uncharacteristic of her.
It is uncharacteristic, and I've known her my whole life, and I have to tell you that I'm very surprised that she decided to do this, and I'm sad that this is going to be a legacy that's going to stick with her going forward. It's unfortunate.
Well, she's my racquetball partner, and I don't think I'm playing with her anymore.